Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Get to Know Us. I'm playing around with the effects. Oh, I like that. We're going to have Isabel Bess on in a few moments. Uh, Her new album, Light Play, just came out today. It's really amazing, so you ought to check it out. All you have to do is go to our Bandcamp, and if you're not sure how to do that, it's Grimalkin Records on Bandcamp, or you can also go to the link tree and get there from there. Then that's in our bio. So we're going to bring Iz on right now and chat with her. All kinds of fun stuff. All right. Hello.
Hey,
How you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm hanging out in bed. So,
Okay, cool. I
yeah.
decided to jazz it up with some weird special effects, but maybe that's too much. So, anyways, I don't know.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's cool.
Oh, geez.
Whoa.
I don't know what's going on. Okay, well, let me just go back to normal. Where is normal? Sorry. I feel like I always look awful in these things, so I was trying to here you go. I'm gonna go with that for a minute. But anyway, so excited. Congratulations on your new album, Light Play. And shout out to Various Small Flames for premiering it today. I really thought everything that they wrote about it was really cool. So, yeah, how are you feeling?
Yeah, yeah. Pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty nervous, about like the album coming out, and so it's just kind of like, yeah, it's been a day of kind of weird, like good but anxious energy, I guess, that I'm trying to find an outlet for and
Yeah, but
just trying to stay busy.
your tape sold out like far before it even released, which is really cool. Which, by the way,
Yeah, yeah.
if anybody's out there and they're hoping like to get another tape, if you let us know we get enough interest, we can absolutely do another run. You just have to we just have to know that, there's folks out there who want that. So just hit us up or hit Is up, and if we get enough interest, I'll definitely do that because went really fast actually.
Yeah, I think Vin's artwork had a lot to do with that. They did such a good job on the cover art.
Yeah, shout out to them too because that artwork is incredible and they look beautiful. The tapes look beautiful. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, all right, well, let's get into it. I always love asking people first how they first got interested in music as a listener, like if there was like a first band or a first song or a first album or something that really like struck you or got you into it, most likely as a kid.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in like extreme rural southeast Missouri, and so there's really only like country music was all that really existed out there.
Ah,
And my dad was a musician, like gigging for a living, playing country and blues, and
oh,
that was really
wow.
all I'd heard mostly. And then I had an older neighbor who was super into Metallica, and I was like 5 or 6, and he's playing like Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning and stuff, and I'm like, I've never heard anything like this. Like this, I thought all music sounded like George Strait or something.
Yeah.
And so like yeah, I was like as a kid I was obsessed with Metallica. I got my mom to buy me the newest Metallica tape, at the store
Yeah.
at like the Walmart or whatever in town, and it was like I think it was the Black Album, so it didn't it didn't go quite as hard as the stuff my neighbor had, but I was super
Yeah.
into it.
That's really cool. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so when did you yourself start getting into like writing and then recording music?
Oh gosh, I was like, you know, like even as a kid growing up, my dad's bands would like practice at our place sometimes. And my dad worked as a like a radio DJ for a bit and did some like session work. So like when I was pretty young, I got to spend time in like studios
Oh, wow.
and radio stations and stuff, and got to kind of be around it, and was always kind of, making noise, I guess.
Yeah.
um, I wanted, as a kid, I think I wanted more than anything because there were like, always basses and guitars around. And we had like an old Casio,
Yeah.
but drums were kind of the forbidden instrument because they were too loud and too big. Um, and I think I wanted more than anything. This is embarrassing now, but to play drums like Lars Ulrich. um, but like, yeah, I didn't really have a place for a drum set, so God, I started playing bass pretty seriously. I think like as a teenager, like maybe like as like 13 or 14 when I started getting really serious about it. But I'd always been just like making noise with whatever was around and, banging on stuff and like making
Yeah.
makeshift drum sets. Yeah.
Yeah, and like so when did you start to like, okay, I'm gonna actually like record some of this stuff or kind of, and also kind of like, you've experimented with all sorts of different kinds of music, so I'm just wondering if like how that progression was for you or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. God, as a teenager, I had this old Sony boombox, like, I don't remember the model number off the top of my head, but it's one of the ones that has the tape deck with like the built-in mic on the front, just the really
Um,
shitty like small little mic grill on the front.
yeah.
Um, and I would record stuff on there. I think initially what I was doing with that boombox was I'd put it up next to the TV on like MTV and tape songs off the TV through the
Yeah.
mic, and I have these really horrible tapes that I'd made. But then I realized I could kind of mess with those sounds and like record different things going on in the background. And so I started making these like, I don't know, these kind of like early, experimental cassette tapes. And then eventually I got a little like a Tascam Porta Studio tape 4-track
Yeah.
that I could like multi-track bass on. And
Hmm.
I started, doing like I do like multi-tracks of like bass harmonics,
Yeah.
and little loops and stuff, and try to play with that. And that was, I think, those are my early forays into like recording as a teenager.
Oh, that's really, really cool. And how did the is project kind of form? And like, I also know there's some field recording on light play too that's happening mixed with the other electronic sounds and yeah, just kind of curious how that happened.
Yeah, that project and that record is very much, God, I feel like it's very much like a coronavirus album.
Okay, okay.
In that like I was previously I was working on like a like more of like a doom metal project, and playing bass a lot. But I got like early on in the pandemic, I got sick and I got long COVID, and just being like made me tired all the time, and I've had a lot of joint pain, and it made it harder to do like live instrumentation in the ways that I've been working with.
Yeah.
And so I got kind of depressed about that for a bit. And I'm also like, I'm seeing like the protests, that were going on, like, after the cops murdered George Floyd, and like just the violent like police repression happening in
Yeah.
in Philly. They were like kettling people and tear gas and stuff. And so like I'm sick, and there's a plague, and like everyone's getting like tear gassed, and it just everything felt very like, I think I felt kind of hopeless for a while, and things felt kind of apocalyptic. And I was thinking about and reading a lot because I was, I couldn't do a whole lot physically for a while.
Yeah.
Um, I was reading a lot of like dystopian and utopian science fiction, and like, like 70s Soviet sci-fi and stuff like that. And so thinking about like how capitalism was kind of you know, destroying the future and how it's always kind of eating the future, and how these past futures people had imagined, um, it's sort of been truncated and become impossible, and trying from within that to imagine like the possibility of a better future still, and not like given to despair. I think is where that's kind of what this project grew out of. So
Yeah,
there's
I do feel like
a,
there's some kind of sense of positivity, like in the songs, even if it was coming from a dark, a dark place. And yeah, I would love to hear you talk a little bit more too about the sci-fi influences, because I know we had talked about it before, where you were drawing from all different kinds of, I think, books and films, for light play for the different songs. And yeah, that was really cool to hear about. So I'm sure people would love to hear about all of that.
yeah, there's so like kind of at the core of this it's a few years ago I read Samuel R. Delany Dahlgren. It's this kind of huge, 1975 like apocalyptic science fiction novel that was really like, I don't know, kind of mind blowing for me, and kind of shifted my perspective on some things. So that's just like, that's a book that was really influential for me even outside of this project, and was kind of at the core of my thinking about like utopia and dystopia and speculative fiction as I got back into it. And so there's a song on the album Diffraction that's it's an interpretation of like a song that's mentioned in the book. It's not really described much, but I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of interpret a song from this book. It's the book takes place in a Midwestern city called Bologna. This kind of suffered its own little apocalypse, and so it exists in this kind of post-apocalyptic bubble. And the only way in is like on foot, and like radio and TV signals can't get in or out, and there's all this weird stuff that happens there. So I
Yeah.
was kind of thinking about the world of that book and the ways that the people in the book are trying to survive in this kind of weird little apocalyptic bubble. Um,
Yeah. 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 And I think you were, if I remember correctly, like maybe it wasn't every song, or was it every song, did have some sort of connection to like something else. I don't know if you wanted to talk more about going through like the tracks or anything like that. It's okay if you don't.
yeah. No, I can. Yeah. I think Deep Time's the only one that's coming out of like a poem that I wrote about where I grew up. So it's not directly inspired by any, oh, sorry,
That's okay.
any particular a book or anything. But then yeah, I'm trying to think. Just thinking of like the order of tracks on the album. So Psychoprobe Console is the name comes from the Paul Verhoeven Total Recall film from 1990, which is based on a Philip K. Dick story.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I was part of the inspiration there, thinking about this idea of like, what is real, and what's kind of fantasy,
yeah,
and how, what's the difference between like how we imagine the future and how we meet the future, and these themes that are kind of raised by the story and the movie. But also just like Psychoprobe Console is this kind of cool concept, right, of being able
yeah,
to like enter someone else's mind through this like machine.
yeah,
So that was a big inspiration there, and that one too. I was like, the sound for that one, I was playing with some of the sounds from the original NES Metroid game, the Chip Tanaka soundtrack, which is just an incredible like 8-bit soundtrack. And I was like, I wanted to make something with the model cycles, the the synth I was using to
yeah,
kind of mimic some of those sounds. So it grew out of this weird meeting of like Metroid and Total Recall.
yeah, yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. And then what's after Diffraction is after that, which I talked about. Um, Full Empty, this artifact from the novel Roadside Picnic. by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. Um, so Roadside Picnic is the basis for probably a better known film called Stalker. It's a Soviet sci-fi novel about like what if extraterrestrials came to Earth and had like a picnic or whatever. We don't really know, but they just left behind their junk in this
Okay.
place called the Zone. And then so there's all this alien junk in the Zone, and the government like wants to like figure it out. And there's all these scientists who are obsessed with it, and there's these like stalkers who go into the Zone and try to like get artifacts either for the scientists or for the black market, and nobody knows what any of this stuff does really.
Yeah.
So there's a scientist in the book who's obsessed with this artifact called a full empty, um, which is not really explained even what it is. It's just some junk, and but he's like obsessed with it, and it gets him into all kinds of trouble. So that was just kind of me thinking about like these like weird alien artifacts and detritus as like a like an impossibility made possible, or like a slippage between the real and unreal. This sort of theme that
Yeah.
I kept coming back to with imagined futures, and so I was like, thinking about that, and also just like what kind of place the Zone is. I think the film's probably an influence for me there visually. Kind of famous Tarkovsky film. It's beautiful. If you've never seen it, I highly
Yeah.
recommend it. But what else? I was reading Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, which is like that feels much more like down to earth compared to some of these other stories in a way. It's much more like it hit in a different way because it's a book that feels so real and so present. Like it doesn't feel like it's about the future. It feels like it's about now,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
in a really horrifying way. Yeah. It's dealing with themes of like climate change and like sort of reactionary state power, and the main character in the book who's dealing with all this horrible shit has this dream to go into outer space and like see humans colonize the stars, and it's a little naive, and it's a little like she's like obsessed with it, and it's not clear if it's like she's doing any good by pursuing this dream, but
Yeah.
like it's this hope that she has that she holds on to throughout the story. And I wanted to think about that hope, and how hope is kind of a complicated thing. Like it's important to have hope in these situations maybe, but also it can become this kind of obsession that leads you um, down a bad path, like right, like the scientist
Yeah.
after the full empty in the Zone
Yeah.
and Roadside Picnic. So that was kind of like Departure is kind of me thinking about that hope and like her imaginary of humans going into outer space or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. And I think that you said that you created this entire album on I forget, a particular piece of equipment. I think you were
Uh,
you're gonna show it.
yeah. I wasn't able to play bass as much, and kind of in bed a lot, and so sorry, I'm having like back spasms. So if I
Oh, I'm
wince,
so
it's just
sorry.
yeah, just having a bad pain day. But I got this little drum machine synth electron thing called it's Model Cycles. So it's
Yeah.
like it's just that. It's pretty small, but almost the entire album was made just using that. Um, and so yeah, I'm interested in FM synthesis, frequency modulation synthesis, which uses it's like the same technology as FM radio. Um, and especially with this project, I was thinking about like radio broadcasts and Dahlgren and stuff. And so yeah, that's a little basically an FM synth drum machine that I programmed the album on.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, and I wanted to know if there were any other influences in general that you wanted to talk to, even if they weren't musical, to your music and the things that you do with music, or and also you're a writer. So I didn't know if you wanted to mention a little bit about that and the poem, or yeah, and I guess anything that you you might want to say about any of that.
Yeah, yeah. I think, gosh, musical influences. It was kind of a weird shift, like I said, because I was working on this kind of like stoner doom drone project, and then I shifted over to kind of more like ambient techno thing. And part of that was I was just listening to a lot of like I was listening to, gosh, a lot of like early acid house, like Chicago stuff, but also like Manchester acid house, a guy called Gerald, stuff like that. And then listening to like a lot of second wave Detroit techno, like Drexia,
Yeah,
which is like a huge influence on both in terms of the sound and like, Drexia has this whole kind of like Afrofuturist utopian vision of like an
yeah,
underwater city that I think
yeah,
is really cool. And then Underground Resistance, who has kind of part of the same scene, but they have like the more kind of militant, you know, sort of approach where they're like, they were like militantly against the major labels, and kind of, keeping things underground. And so that's like, I was influenced by UR probably more like philosophically than in terms of sound, although, it's also an influence there.
yeah.
Oh gosh. And then thinking outside of like music and fiction, I don't know, the title of the record, Light Play, is kind of a double entendre, but I was thinking about the concept of playing light, in the game of Go, is where that came from.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was talking to a friend about chess and Go, and there's a concept of lightness, light play in Go. It's difficult to explain maybe if you don't play any Go, but the idea
Yeah.
is like having flexibility in your play such that you don't like connect your stones and things unless you need to, so that you might lose some stones or you might lose some influence or some territory in an area, but you need to still be flexible so you can take advantage in another area.
Okay.
And that for me was a metaphor for thinking about like all this like crushing stuff happening, and how do we organize, and like what tactics can we use to not only try and survive this but try and fight back, right? And we need
Yeah.
this kind of flexibility, and we need to be able to, imagine different kinds of futures that are sort of better than the present we're living in, so we can work toward them. And as one future might get kind of devoured by capitalism, then we need to be able to shift, and we need to be able to change our tactics.
Yeah.
And so that's something that was a big influence in my thinking too. I was playing a lot of Go at the time, and still am, kind of studying the game. I guess the past couple years, I think I started playing maybe just a year or two ago, but it's been a little bit of an obsession.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of interesting that you picked that up too, kind of like with the pandemic too, kind of
Yeah, yeah.
happening all at the same time. So, yeah, all that's really interesting and makes a lot of sense, and it adds a different layer to your music that like you might not, the listener might not get upon just listening or whatnot. So it's really interesting. So yeah, so thanks for sharing all that. I'm sure people who love the album will really like hearing about that stuff if they don't already know about it from talking to you. But yeah, yeah. And is there anything that you're listening to now that you want to talk about? And again, that's okay if you don't want to, if there's nothing. Because I know a lot of people are saying, I'm hearing a lot of like, oh, I haven't really been listening to a ton of music because of the pandemic. It's odd. It's an odd time right now. You know?
It is it is weird. I feel like I go through, yeah, periods of like not listening to a lot of new music, and then I go through periods of just like constantly seeking out and listening to new stuff.
Yeah.
And Yeah, lately I've been super into gorge music,
Oh yeah,
which is
yes, yes. And I read your blog
yeah, I
post
think
about it, and that's great. Yeah, do you want to talk a little
yeah,
bit about it and like your fascination with it or whatever?
yeah. I could try to explain. So basically, gorge music is it's a kind of small subgenre of electronic dance and experimental music that's inspired by mountain climbing.
Yeah,
Um, it's
yeah.
mostly like the scene is mostly in Japan, but there are people around the world making gorge tracks. There's like a new compilation coming out pretty soon, I think. Um, but it's like I don't know. I think I got into it through there's a Kazuki Koga album that came out not that long ago on Virgin Babylon Records.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this music? Music about mountain climbing, and
Yeah.
like he's talking about like reaching the summit of the gods, and I couldn't tell at first. I was like, is this ironic, or like are people like really into mountain climbing? And it's I
Yeah.
think it's a little of both, right? Like a
Yeah.
lot of people in the gorge scene are into mountain climbing,
Yeah.
and I think I initially approached it kind of ironically. I was like, oh, it's kind of funny and weird, and the music sounds really cool. It's all these like heavy toms, and
Yeah.
and lots
Yeah.
of cool influences. Um, and
And
I think I can't like physically, I can't really, I can't do rock climbing or anything, and so I
yeah, well,
sort of
it's
got
dangerous.
interested.
Mountain climbing is can be very dangerous depending on what kind you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but I was like, here's this way, like through listening to this music and through, I've been trying to make some tracks of my own, like I can kind of like get at this experience of something that I can't otherwise do. So I became
Yeah.
interested in it from that angle. Like I can't climb a
Yeah.
mountain, but I can listen to gorge.
Yeah, and is it true? Because when I was reading your blog post and like you would link to some things, it's funny how it's like toms playing the toms is like that's like the staple of the like
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
there's something called the gorge public license that's like the three rules that make
yeah,
a track gorge.
yeah,
Because anyone can make gorge. And the rules are use toms, don't call it art,
yeah, yeah,
call it gorge.
yeah, yeah. That's what it
And
was. Yeah.
Toms doesn't have to be interpreted literally, so toms can be anything.
Okay, like so I could be named Tom and just be like my music scourge.
Yeah, yeah,
That
exactly.
was really funny. Yeah, I was listening to some of it and it is really interesting and like yeah, it's always like fascinating too when some kind of like subculture of like surrounding something like I don't know, like mountain climbing, comes about and there's sort of like this community of people who all I had never heard of it, so like I wouldn't have even known if you hadn't told me about it. I would have never known about it, but it's like stuff like that where there's like this huge following of people that are doing this thing like yeah, it's just always really cool when you like learn about stuff like that. So yeah, really cool. Um yeah, and so like shifting gears a little bit, like so with Grimalkin, we mutual aid is a large part in what we do, and typically our tape releases will go to a different mutual aid organization, grassroots organization, typically smaller community-based organizations that are doing mutual aid work in their community, and the artist chooses someone local to them usually, or that they have a connection with in some way, or just, admire what they're doing. And I know you chose, I know you're not currently in Philadelphia, but you did live there. I forget how long you told me you lived there, but you did choose to give your proceeds from your tapes to the sex worker in Philadelphia fund under like Red Umbrella Alliance, if I'm getting that correct, accurate, if I'm saying that
Yeah, yeah.
accurately. Yeah, and I just wanted to see, like why you chose them, and which definitely makes sense with everything you were saying about the album too, with the pandemic and whatnot. But like, yeah, if you anything you wanted to say about their work and why you chose them, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I moved to the Philly area like I don't know, maybe probably less than a year before the pandemic started. So it
Oh,
was kind of
wow.
like,
Jeez.
yeah, it was a place that and I'm out in central PA now.
Yeah.
But like I feel like Philly was a city that felt very welcoming. That felt very like when I got there, I was like, oh, I could stick around here. And I don't have like I don't know, I've moved around my whole life. You know, I've
Yeah.
been like both sides of the country and all over
Yeah.
the middle of it. And I at the time I was like, oh, maybe I'll stick around in Philly. It kind of started to feel like a home. Um, but like I don't know, a lot of people who are important to me in my life are sex workers and do various kinds of sex work.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic hit, this I mean it's
Yeah.
hard on a lot of people, but
Yeah.
I felt like people doing like full service survival sex work,
Yeah.
was like so scary.
Yeah.
Um, like what do you do?
Yeah.
How do you mitigate risk? You're already facing all these risks with the
Yeah.
way like criminalization and like it's just I don't know, it's just like such a heavy thing. And so I just wanted to contribute something to help out, in Philly with people doing sex work and facing that risk in the pandemic. So
Yeah.
this fund set up by Project Safe and Red Umbrella Alliance, kind of working together, and it's just a mutual aid fund that sex workers in Philly can fill out. Like there's a form, and you can get
Yeah.
some help, if you need money.
Yeah, that's great. And
So
they
yeah,
primarily started up at the when after the this particular fund started around the pandemic when everything was really everybody was being affected very much so. So yeah, that's great. And I think we raised quite a bit for them. I don't remember how much. I mean, obviously it's probably not a whole lot compared to maybe what some people are able to donate, but like for tape sales, tapes don't cost that much, but there were a lot of folks who bought your tape and they like chipped in larger amounts of money, that and that was really cool because that I would
yeah,
say,
yeah, that's great.
yeah, I actually feel like I saw that more with your release than anybody else's, as far as people just really kind of going above and beyond, um, in general, which was really cool. It's always cool when people do that. It's not expected. It's always like a pleasant surprise, and I felt like I can definitely say it happened probably the most with your release. It usually happens with maybe one person here and there, like on a release, but like, yeah, there seemed to be quite a few people who really wanted to support what you were doing. So that's really cool. You should be proud of
Yeah, yeah,
that.
that's great. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it feels
yeah.
good.
Yeah, it's really cool. And hopefully more awareness to what they're doing. And Grimalkin's trying to do a little bit better with as we get, as we grow and we're able to get more help with also like promoting other organizations and what they're doing. Like, so on our website, we have like on our mission page, we have like all the different organizations that artists have chosen that we've supported with our releases. But I'd really like to kind of, and it links to their website. So, but
Yeah, yeah.
I really kind of like to try and actively do more with that, where we're like frequently posting more about their work, like making graphic cards. And I'm hopefully we're getting some. Well, we have two interns from VCU who are going to help us out this summer and help me with some of this promotional graphic stuff that I just haven't been able to get to because I've had all these ideas for things to promote our artists better and the organizations better, but I just haven't been able to like find the time. Like it always ends up at the bottom
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
list because there's other things that take priority. But so between that and also just like hopefully at some point it would be so cool if we had people that could help also with like networking more with those organizations to try to figure out ways we can collaborate more, and that's like
Yeah.
that's where I really like Grimalkin to head towards more, like promoting not just what we're doing and helping our artists, but also like kind of promoting that work elsewhere and building those connections, because I feel like the more connections that we can make with other mutual aid organizations, that's going to help also our artists and our community, because we can, a lot of times people don't realize these resources are around because sometimes they're more underground. They don't have money for promoting
Right,
themselves.
yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully, we can get better at that too. That's definitely a goal that I have, and we're slowly crawling towards a lot of these like bigger goals, but hopefully that'll happen. But yeah, and also I always like to talk to people about like, because Grimalkin obviously is also trying to, build different systems of support, alternative systems of support to help artists, because so much of the way the music industry and music business works is exploiting artists, or definitely putting them at the bottom of the list. They're being used to make money, and they're like the final thought. They're the last thought. They're not really like who they're putting up forward first and wanting to support or anything like that. And I'm always curious to hear other people's perspectives on those types of problems within music, either whether they want to talk about things that they've seen as problems in their local communities, which are often similar, regardless of where you live, or even just in general, more generally, like things that you want to see done differently or fixed within the music business or industry in general, in more general terms. So yeah, anything that you wanted to like talk about or highlight in that regard would be cool.
Yeah. I think a lot about, and in terms of with the scene, is accessibility,
Yeah.
which takes a lot of dimensions, both like accessibility at shows and like accessibility for artists to be able to perform, and like I think also like like compensation is a part of that too, right? Like
Yeah.
disabled artists have to be able to get paid. So I feel
Yeah.
like doing something about like streaming is a big topic right now, and like doing something about that I think is a matter of accessibility too. But I'm also thinking about like um, I don't know, with the start of the pandemic, there were so many like people are trying to figure out new ways to perform and do shows and tour, and I think people turn to like streaming and different methods that I think a lot of disabled artists had been using.
Yeah.
Suddenly non-disabled artists were taking up those methods,
Yeah.
and it was cool, like for me, because I'm someone who even before the pandemic I often can't go to shows, because I get like sensory overload, and I have some like photosensitivity and migraine issues,
Yeah.
and so like it was cool for me to be able to go to more, just like see more artists I wanted
Yeah.
to see streaming and things. And now I feel like that's getting a little abandoned. I don't know, like non-disabled artists took up those methods, sometimes with and sometimes without crediting maybe disabled artists who worked them out, previously. But then like I don't know if there wasn't enough money in it, or people just want to be physically on tour. I understand it's like it's different
Yeah.
to be like physically in the same space with people, but I feel like some people are abandoning these kind of alternative methods we worked out already, and it's kind of a bummer. I
Yeah.
don't know, for me, because like
Yeah.
I want to continue being able to go to shows and stuff, but I think I hope that we can keep having conversations about both like ways to have non-physical virtual shows, but also ways to make physical spaces accessible. Be that like having places for people to sit,
Yeah. Yeah.
somewhere where someone can go if they're having like a meltdown, overload, not having like lots of strobe lights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Venues being physically accessible,
Yeah.
just all kinds of stuff, right? And you can't always like figure everything out. I think also a part of this probably is you'll see like venues either say that they're like accessible or something, but it's not clear like what, like they don't clearly list like what stuff they have
Yeah.
in place, because nothing's 100% accessible to everyone. So it's like just
Yeah.
being clear about information sometimes is a part of that.
Yeah, yeah, like venues doing a better job of maybe explaining like, oh, we have this amount of seats and we're not going to have strobe
Yeah.
lighting, or we're going to have yeah, like having a list. That would be great if that became more of a like a common thing that venues just like on their website, they had like a
Yeah,
tab
yeah.
about accessibility and what they're doing. Like what do they have? Like that would be really cool. Yeah,
I
so
think I don't want to like ramble too much about
no,
it, but
no, you're not rambling.
I have kind of like a personal pet peeve with like photosensitivity warnings. They're always kind of like blanket all or nothing. And so that like you'll see this like with
Oh,
TV shows, they'll put a photosensitivity warning on everything. And it's like, well then I don't know what I can
right.
watch because everything has, and then I stop paying attention to the warnings because most of the time it'll have a warning and it's like not a big deal, and then something gives me like a really bad headache or something, and I'm like, I don't know, just like specificity of information would be helpful. Like say, like this is going to have, a strobe light that's faster than 3 hertz, or better yet, just don't have a strobe light that's faster than 3 hertz, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
but
hear you.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I know. I feel like, and I always am thinking about accessibility, especially like with Grimalkin and our events and things like that, and just even on or social media or posts or whatnot. And I know I could always do better, and but it also just yeah, just everybody could do a lot better. Like even for these interviews, I keep forgetting like, oh, we probably should be doing our self descriptions and we probably should be giving our pronouns. And then I think about it and then I forget because it's not my
yeah,
problem, so I forget about it. And it's like I've been trying to work better on doing that or making sure I put alt descriptions on all the photographs and things like that. Um, yeah. And it does take extra work and it does take extra time and
yeah,
it does take extra thought. And so I think that's why that's part of it why I don't think everybody will follows through with it. And if it doesn't affect them, it's hard for people to like put themselves in their shoes. For some people who, if they're not disabled at all and they don't have any issues, it's not even necessarily that they don't care. It's just like it never even occurred to them because not enough people are really like normalizing all
yeah.
these
I think
things.
part of it is like disabled people get pushed out of the scene, and then like people don't see, like disabled people around, and they're like, well, there aren't any people on the scene who need these accommodations, right? Because they don't see it,
Yeah,
and it's like, well, that's because
you're hiding
that's
it, or
because we got pushed out already, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. So I think I mentioned it to you, but like a great example is apparently, so this organization ramped that I follow that does disability advocacy and whatnot. They have, I guess, Lachi, who's like a performer and a musician. I guess she had gone to the Grammys and like just kind of like checking out like what they've done or what they're doing. And I guess like this year they did the most that they've ever done, but it still was like really far. So they had some ASL interpreters, but they were like off stage really far away that anyone who needed it had to like look away from the
yeah,
stage, and they were hidden from the camera. And then like they had a ramp on, I guess, for the smaller stage, but for the main stage they had a ramp that was like kind of behind and hidden. And so I don't know, like bigger people like that, like the bigger companies, corporations, whatever, organizations, if they started doing a better job, probably would get out the word more. But we can't rely on that. But like the Grammys, is huge and so many people watch it. But it's like if you had the ASL interpreters on the stage and they're on camera, and you know what I mean, and you have a ramp that's clear,
yeah,
people can
yeah,
see, just little things like that, making it visible would be helpful. And I
right,
guess like kind of trying to think about that more with anything that Grimalkin's going to do, or just like anything that anybody's going to do. I just think the more we talk about it, things will hopefully improve. But like again, like it would matter so much if bigger people have bigger influence, made it more visible and talked about it. But at the same time, like we really can't rely on those people like to do any changes so either. So
yeah,
it's kind of a tough thing. But bringing it back to something positive, um, Yeah, we're gonna wrap up the interview soon, and I'll mention some of the things that are happening tonight and next week. But before I do that, I always like to hear from folks, like if they have any kind of like words of advice or wisdom for maybe somebody who's just getting started in music or is thinking about it, or just hopes and dreams for the future, either for yourself or more generally, that you wanted to share with everybody.
Um, oh God, I don't know. Just keep fighting. And keep making, music and art. I still believe that communism will win, and I think making art is a part of that. So,
Okay.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
cool, cool. Yes, everybody should make art. That's my personal belief. Art or music or something creative. Doesn't matter if anybody sees it, doesn't matter if it's good. Like you just need to do it because it's going to make your life better and helps you process the world. And especially these times, I feel like the harder things are in your life and the harder things are in the world, just having a place to kind of try to process that stuff creatively is like one of the best ways to do that. Because a lot of it, you can't, it's just like feelings and you can't really like even comprehend sometimes. And like
yeah,
that's what art and music are for. It's like you don't need to have words or to even understand it or for it to be good or anything. Like so yeah, make more art, make art and music. And but don't call it art if it's gorge.
yeah. Call it gorge.
Yeah. So for everybody who might be watching or will listen in before tonight, we are having a listening party this evening at 8:30 p.m. Oh yeah, and shout out to Queen Paz. It is her birthday, or their birthday, my bad, their birthday today. And we are going to be listening to their song Hold On Up um, at 8:30 p.m. And then we're going to listen to Isabel's album, Light Play. So you don't want to miss it. It's going to be on our Discord. And if you haven't joined our Discord, the link is in our link tree in our bio. Just click on it. And we just recommend people do it before 8:30, just because, oh, it's 8:30 Eastern Standard Time too. And so just make sure you would join before then because you had to kind of read the rules and give yourself a little introduction to be let into the part of the server where we're actually having the listening party, which is in the cassette deck. And I see Anna is in the house. Hey,
Hi,
Anna.
Anna.
And Anna is, she created our entire Discord, which is so cool. And yeah, so that's really cool. So shout out to Anna and everything that she does to support us. And then next week, Thursday, and oh my gosh, I think the time just went out of my head. I think it's 7 p.m. Do you remember? Is it 7 p.m.? Is going to be a live stream of is in her doing tracks from Light Play Live, a live stream, and that's going to be on our YouTube. So you'll be able to join us in the chat there. I think it's 7 p.m. Oh gosh, I know there's a post. We have a graphic on our on
I
our
think so. It's around then.
yes, and that's Eastern Standard Time. But like it'll I'll be posting about it again. But there is a graphic somewhere on our I think on both of our accounts that has the
Yeah.
time information. So yeah, you can subscribe to YouTube. I don't think we got the link set up yet, but as soon as I do, I'll be sending that out in case people want to like get the link like in advance or you know what I mean, save. I think YouTube has like a save option so that you can like get a reminder for the show before it starts.
Yeah. I think I did that for the Grammys. So I think
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've just gotta figure all that out, but yeah. Okay, well, yeah, thanks for everybody who did tune in, and I'm gonna be putting this up also on our YouTube. So, and yeah, thank you so much, Iz, for um, submitting your album to us and being a part of Grimalkin and for everything. Yeah, I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll see you later
I'll
at the
see you a
listening
little bit
party.
tonight. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Bye.
Bye.